Oh, hey there, good people of the internet. Welcome to a very special video event, and that is the first episode of a little show called The Pixel Place. I'm your host, Morgan Freeman. No, I'm kidding. I'm Yannick, and this is a show where we're going to be talking games and game news, and we could talk about you too if you want, but might not be what you tune into a show called The Pixel Place for. So, uh, yeah, we'll be talking games past, present, future, and a few things before we get into it. First, no spoilers, because I can't tell you how many times I've been psyched to play, even if it was an older game, look up a video, because I want to just psych myself up for it some more, and spoilers right there. So even if we do go into spoilers, you will get plenty of warning, because that's another thing. The spoiler badge shows up, but then half a second later, and the main character's dead. So none of that. None of that spoiler stuff. As you can see, I'm shaking my pen at it. It's a serious issue, so you're good on that front. Second, the way we'll be doing reviews is we'll talk story, gameplay, things to do, and verdict, because what more do you need, right? And lastly, it's about to get a little serious here, but no, I think a lot of times with reviews and I think criticism in general, it's easy to forget that there's an artist behind the art. I mean, there's plenty of videos out there where the title itself just goes, "This game sucks." Fair enough. I mean, I'm not saying anything about the things that other people do, but I guess nobody sets out to make a game that sucks. So a lot of care and effort probably goes into these things. And I'm not saying that every game is without flaw or that I enjoy every game or that some developers haven't made some questionable decisions, but what I can do is keep it straight for you guys and just give you the honest opinion and give games their fair due. Granted, all opinions are subjective, but yeah. So with that out of the way, the game that we're going to be talking is a little underrated gem from 2015 that came out on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And that game is Mad Max. So, story. So, the game starts off with you playing as Max, because let's face it, if you bought a game called Mad Max and I don't know, you played as Kermit the Frog, that wouldn't be what you bought in for, though that would be an amazing game. And I mean, the game's on PC, so PC modders out there if you want to get working on that. But yeah, you play as Max, and at the start of the game, his car is destroyed by this warlord called Scabrous Scrotus. If you didn't already know, Mad Max, not a game for children, but yeah, his car is scrapped, and he meets this mechanic that thinks that he's some prophet, and you basically traverse the Wasteland, which is formerly the Australian outback. Little Mad Max trivia there for you. And you hunt down these different warlords across the different regions to try and find Scrotus. So the story itself is it's engaging. It's not an afterthought. You wouldn't feel like that. You want to see what happens from start to finish, and that's a plus with any story. And I can think back to several moments actually that do stand out in the story, and that's always cool too. So next is gameplay, and with gameplay you can break it down into Max and car, and jumping straight into Max, let's look at the combat system. So think a little less Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which is also a classic, and more the free-flow combat system from this studio Rocksteady Games, who worked on this little franchise called the Batman Arkham series. And setting it aside from the Arkham games, right off the bat, Max plays different. Max moves heavy, but that also means he punches heavy. And yeah, my sound effects, that's the punching sound effect. And I'm talking guys coming at you, you punch one guy, you hit the counter button, which is very responsive, by the way. You turn around, you elbow another guy in the face, another guy's coming out, you pull a shotgun out, you blast him halfway across the arena, pull a shiv out of your boot, stab a guy in the head. He's not getting up after that. And it's just plain fun. And the way it translates into the controller is through the vibrations and the feedback. and you really feel it. It's really immersive. Now moving on to cars, because at the end of it, when you think Mad Max, you don't think a guy who's in desperate need of a shower, you think cars. And driving is one of the things you'll be doing a lot of when you're moving around the wasteland. And it's a pretty big map. So the cars themselves are easy to handle. You have right trigger, R2, left trigger, L2 for accelerate and reverse. So that is nice. They're responsive. They feel heavy because they aren't sports cars. They're wasteland rigs, and you can get engaged in races and car combat, which you have Chumbucket, the mechanic, standing in the boot of your car, helping you out with like a harpoon, and you can actually harpoon other guys out of their cars and just pull them straight out. That's pretty fun. And then driving through the wasteland is also pleasantly surprising. Don't discount it for the fact that it's a desert. There's actually quite a lot of variety in the wasteland, without spoiling anything, in the different regions. And one of my favorite things to do is just driving and ripping through. And there's this thing in the game world called storms. So you see a storm approaching on the horizon, and it's this literal force of nature. And you can just rip straight into a storm, and it's just lightning going off everywhere. And sometimes enemies can follow you into the storms, and now you're just engaged in this back and forth with enemies, trying to avoid the lightning and the sand, and their cars are going up in flames. It's just a lot of fun. And there's also incentives to drive into storms to get scrap, which we will talk about more in things to do. But scrap is basically wasteland money, and ultimately gameplay is enjoyable start to finish. The gameplay mechanics don't get stale, and I think that's in part of the fact that it values fun over all else. Combat feels desperate and brutal. The car has a variety of weapons. The harpoon is ragdoll physics at its finest, and it's just control chaos with you in control the whole time. And I don't mean to sound like a really bad commercial, but that's gameplay for you. And with that out of the way, let's move on to things to do, because we got things to do here. So on the topic of things to do, there's the main quest, which we touched on in the story segment, and then there's side quests. So there's a few side quests peppered around the world of Mad Max, and most kind of revolve around enemy outposts and that kind of thing. So it does border on the repetitive side of things, though I would compare it to a game like Prototype 2 or even Marvel Spider-Man. And if you haven't played those, to put it into context, the side quests in those games were more or less the same thing, but the gameplay was just so much fun that you didn't mind playing them over and over. And with Mad Max, there's the added incentive of wasteland money, scrap, as I put it earlier. And scrap goes into customization. So you can customize Max and the car, and with Max you can customize his moves, you can learn new moves and increase his health, that kind of thing. You could also upgrade him cosmetically, so the way he looks, I mean, who doesn't like some good beard physics in a game? But that's there. And the car customization is way more extensive and deep. You can build your own car in the game. I'm talking you find a frame and then Chumbucket works on it for you. So that's armor and the engine and hood ornaments and paint jobs, which there are some colorful options, tires, it's all there. And speaking about how some cars drive a bit slower, you can actually trade up speed for protection, so that balance is there if you'd like to have something like a tank or something a bit speedier that you can just zip through around and passing through enemies and that kind of thing. There's also collectibles, so things like photographs and other remnants of the old world that are nice. They're a nice addition to build sort of lore, and this term is thrown around a lot, but world building in the game, and they're all nice additions to have at the end of it. So with that, let's jump right into the final bit, and that is verdict. Now, like I said at the start, and I try not to exaggerate with this, but I think Mad Max is one of the most underrated games of the current console generation, and that is a Pixel Place guarantee. And I know I said the whole thing about not exaggerating, but you know what? We're sticking by it. And I don't know why this game flew under so many people's radars. Maybe the whole stigma behind people thinking movie tie-in games aren't as good, though this isn't a movie tie-in game, even though it came out the same year as Fury Road. And I have to admit, I really liked that movie. So jumping into this, I had considerably high expectations, and I still enjoyed it. So I think anybody who's kind of on the fence, with little to no expectations, is really going to enjoy this game. And that's why I would recommend that you go out there and play it, especially before the next generation of consoles comes in with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, though those are supposed to be backwards compatible, so you're probably going to be able to play this on those consoles as well. But bottom line is Mad Max is a great action adventure game. If that's your thing, there's about 30 plus hours of gameplay for you to just sink your teeth into. And there's some cool fan service in there as well. So if you're a fan of Mad Max in general, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. And with that, we draw to a close the first episode of The Pixel Place. I'm your host, Yannick, and have a good one.